The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, so we finished out the week on Friday. Grain markets under pressure. Soybeans, the leader to the downside. Spring wheat did find a little bit of green, but all in all, kind of a quiet, blah end of the week of the grains. Livestock trade found a little bit of support. Let's talk markets and get some perspective as we close out the first week of December. Joining us, Dwayne Bussey with Bolton Marketing. And Dwayne, welcome back to the show, my friend. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Oh, absolutely. No, I always gauge Thanksgiving. We farm this far north in Northeast South Dakota. If I'm done with harvest, it's a great holiday. If I'm not, I'm kind of crabby and can't quite relax. And now we were done for a couple of weeks before, so we had a great Thanksgiving, a lot of football, definitely a lot of eating. I was talking to you before we went on. I feel like I'm about to hit a growth spurt, but I think at age 47, the growth spurt isn't the height one I was looking for. we'll see how I get through this harvest season, I guess.
Well, and to add on top of it too, winter showing up on your doorstep here for many folks across the upper Midwest over the last several days. And I guess, well, an early start to winter, or at least right on time if you go off the meteorological calendar, Dwayne.
Yeah, it's kind of mixed emotions at my household. My wife teaches, and I got two kids in high school. And of course, bad weather comes, they start to get excited about a possible snow day, and I get crabby as heck because I don't want to move snow, and I like to ice fish and hunt, and that just screws up all those plans. So there's very mixed emotions when the first blizzard came through. And we did have a snow day right before Thanksgiving up here, so that's a little early in my book anyway.
I miss the days of sitting in front of the TV watching the morning news, waiting for the school to scroll on the bottom. Now everyone just gets a text message or something to tell us if school is canceled. Man.
Those were the days.
Yeah. Well, and, speaking of that, we get, market updates on our phones and everything else these days. But, this first week of December, market updates really did feel like there were many. Are the holiday blues already kind of settling into this grain market, Dwayne?
They might be a little bit. I kind of felt it during the Thanksgiving holiday, and honestly really hoped once we got into this week, first week of December, like you mentioned, open the show, I thought, we should see some fun buying come back, especially the soybean complex with the rumors about China. And now it's kind of blah. Like I said, speaking of China, we'll just say it right away. I mean, it seems like that's what we're looking at every day. And we did finally get that flash sale this morning, sales of U.S. beans to China. And what did the market do? Sold the rumor, I guess, or sold the actual news. So, kind of disappointing. Don't like that chart pattern we made today, but I'm hoping it's just a Friday thing and nobody wanted to buy it. But a little disappointed. It does feel like a holiday trade already.
Well, you mentioned China, and to your point, we are looking at it every day. Are they in the daily flash wire? Are they showing up as we catch up with weekly export sales? You got the Treasury Secretary saying that they're on pace, but they'll make their purchases by February, are we moving the goalposts, or was this always the plan? Or, I don't think anybody really knows the answer at this point. I think just for us, as traders and folks watching the markets and farmers and ranchers, it's just kind of that daily watch and see if the news is there that impacts this market trade one way or another, Dwayne.
I know. I think it's really interesting. You're right. So Bassett kind of makes it sound like, it's going to happen. Don't worry. And honestly, it gets kind of owly in some of the interviews when somebody questions it's not going to happen, that China won't buy that 12 million metric ton they've promised. But Trade Ambassador Greer this week, and I think this is why the market went down today. He said something about we don't even have a trade deal with China set in place for buying soybeans yet. So we're all like, well, if we don't have a trade deal in place, how does Bassett think they're going to buy 12 million metric tons? So it's back and forth a lot. And of course, he's been rumored that he farms in North Dakota, which he's just part of a group that owns some land in North Dakota. But I'm kind of curious what he's doing with his soybeans, because I guess if he sold his soybeans, I should probably sell mine, because then the outlook doesn't look good. But it's a lot of back and forth, Jesse, kind of annoying. I will say this. Let's go down this tinfoil hat rabbit hole I'm going to send you on now. Okay. Once the government got back to work, we announced how we're going to release these weekly export sales report. We don't get caught up right away. And we don't even release the next week's data. We're going to go back and like the export sales we got this week, I think it was from October 30th. So we're way behind. That really could have given China the blueprint to like, hey, if you want to buy a bunch of our beans under that daily sales flash limit, you can buy a whole bunch and no one's going to know for a month. So like I said, tinfoil hat guy on me, like thinks maybe they've been buying a bunch and just keeping it under the large export sales flash of the day. Or maybe that's the farmer in me, Jesse, hoping that's the deal.
At this point, I've racked my head so much on this China-U.S. trade issue and everything else. And, I've said it on this show before that I don't think China's coming back in a meaningful way. And then, there's this talk of this framework and more. At this point, it's anyone's guess, I think, is what's going to happen here to Wayne. And it's something that, unfortunately, it's just going to add volatility, or maybe fortunately. I know some folks like volatility in the markets. Right. Either way, it's just going to add that tinge of uncertainty in the soybean market, I feel like, until there's more certainty, whenever that may be, or if that ever comes.
I hate to say it, but I think you're right. And I don't know which one is better. For a while there, I think the uncertainty of, will China buy that much from us actually probably rallied the market. I think that was the funds buying before the holidays. And now that they're buying some, but it's not to the level people want it to be, that's why we're selling off some. Now, you were losing some of that uncertainty that they might buy that much. Now, back to what you mentioned, you didn't think they were going to come in a big way. I'm sure you're just doing the math. You're looking at how much they import in a year, what they've already bought from Brazil. They don't really need a lot of our beans. And of course, from February on, we'll be higher priced than Brazil. In comes the politics, though. And this is the part I don't know, and the uncertainty comes back in. Does China want to keep Trump happy? And, what's all in this trade deal? What are they getting that maybe they'll buy our soybeans for $1 more expensive than South America just to keep Trump happy for a while? So it's probably somewhere in between all of that. So so far this show's off to a great start. We've answered a ton of questions and pinpointed exactly where the market's going to go.
Well, I'll switch gears because we could stay down this rabbit hole for quite a while and talk ourselves in circles probably. How about corn? Demand in corn remains really strong. I've talked about it a few times here on the show this week. And you look at this corn complex, though, kind of trudging in its range. We got a big supply to chew through here. Yeah. What's your feeling, though, in this corn market, especially as we look at a new December WASDE report coming up in a couple of days, and then, of course, the big January report and more? I mean, how you feel about this corn market right now, Dwayne?
Honestly, I really like it. Every time I start to do a breakdown in a longer term corn outlook, I get a little bit more friendly. And I think that goes back to the export demand, right? And also the ethanol demand. Last 2 weeks, both have kicked in really solid. U.S. report next week, like you mentioned, I think USDA might have to raise export demand again, even though it already looks unbelievably high. But look at our pace. I mean, if they increased it 100 million bushels, the math wouldn't argue with that. I don't know if they'll go that far. They may increase it maybe 50 or 75 million bushels. Now everyone's talking about, the feed and residual usage being too high. So you can probably offset there. I think one of the reasons I'm bullish is that I'm a little bit lower on the yield. I'm down around a 182, and I think the rest of the trade is too. Maybe not quite that low, but the problem is they probably won't announce that next week. The December USDA report, usually they don't touch production. They wait till January for that. So we might not get that bullish report I want, but just the underlying support in this market, Jesse, the export demand, and we're still the cheapest corn source out there. So I think this market can keep grinding higher, which sure help if soybeans get a little rally in here too. But I really like the corn market here moving forward.
How about the wheat trade? You got Chicago and KC down a little bit Friday. Spring wheat tried to find some green on the screen. That's, of course, such a global market. There's been a lot of issues with Russia, Ukraine in the news wires and more as of late. So how are you feeling about the wheat trade as we get into December?
Jesus, we had found something to be bullish about, and then you had to turn and talk wheat. And I feel bad. There's wheat producers out there that are just hating me right now, but it has been tough. And this week, Stats Canada report
Yep.
a record crop there. So, man, it seems like every time we have some sort of report from Australia, Russia, Canada, it's another larger crop. So that will be the opposite of the corn market. That's going to limit any rallies. Now, we handled that negative news rather well, which I think is a victory in wheat, like you said. Not a bad day today, not a bad week. So maybe the funds are done going short the wheat complex, and that's a victory by itself. So I'm not saying sell wheat and it's headed lower. I think it can trend higher. I think the only way it does it is by piggytail on the back of maybe a higher corn market.
Well, and could corn then be the leader? I've heard people talk about, well, wheat needs to be the leader of the grains, but maybe it's corn through this holiday window into the new calendar year here, Dwayne.
It might be. Well, I think it will be because typical holiday, when the trade gets quiet, we start working on other things, right? Which includes next year's acreage battle. Not that it's going to be much of a battle, but I think corn acres are down next year. And if I'm right about the yield being down on old crop and all of a sudden ending stocks get tighter, corn could have a better picture and a better outlook. So that could be the market that rallies everything. And maybe China steps in and surprises us all on beans and helps us out. But yeah, no, I think corn can be the leader here.
Dwayne Bussey with Bolt Marketing joining us here on today's Market Talk, and more on that acreage battle thought. It's not necessarily heating up quite yet. Maybe you've heard differently as you've talked with producers. It feels like maybe we're waiting to see a little more clarity on the South American weather picture. But I mean, I gotta think that this 2026 acreage battle, considering the farm economics that are out there and some of the oversupply in corn, beans, etc., do we see some shifts back to things like sorghum, spring wheat, milo, rice and cotton in the South, oilseed crops like sunflowers? I mean, do we see some shifts, or does corn stay king, soybeans stay, the close second?
That's a great question. I want to say, yeah, you do see quite a shift. I do think that happens. I think bean acres are up. I think all other crop acres are up, or at least people are looking. But I just talked all bullish corn, right? So if corn's going to run to $4.75 to $5, then corn probably will hold the acres. But if it doesn't, then I think the acres are lower. Hence the acreage battle as it moves forward. I think, you mentioned the farm finances right now. I think that could kind of shift acres away from corn. Everyone knows it is expensive to plant corn. The problem is it's expensive to plant spring wheat too. It takes a lot of fertilizer. So I think beans are the one that wins. I don't know if they win or if they just get all the extra acres. Now, last year too, prevent plant acres were down sharply. And I can tell you from looking outside my window, they're probably going to be back up next year. Everyone will say, oh, it's a long time. It's hard to say. But if it's sitting in water in the Dakotas in the fall, it's probably going to be water in the spring. So we can lose some acres there too. But just the overall bearish financial pictures on farms kind of makes me think people are going to plant the cheapest crop they can. And that's usually soybeans.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a big part of the conversation here, especially as we wrap up the year and get into January. All right, let's talk livestock. I think we should move over there. Cattle, what can you say? Fasten your seatbelts, all the volatility. Yeah. I mean, it's, look at this rally we've had back after all these body blows, futures, cash, everything. It seems like I've had a few people tell me this, that the fundamentals seem to be taking hold again in this cattle market, Dwayne.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it too. Like I said, for weeks there, it was just easy to sell. The funds were selling with two hands, right? And everyone wanted to know where the bottom would be. And I kept saying, well, if we had a commitment to trade report, maybe I could tell you, because I thought the funds would get out of all long positions, just liquidate and then restart this thing. And then maybe we could have a rally in 26. Boy, did she turn around last week. What an amazing trade last week. Or it depends which side you're on, I guess. You could have been wrong on both sides last week. Maybe nobody liked the market. We were down hard on the Tyson news and we rallied back. And now it does feel like we're meeting up with the fundamentals again. Like you mentioned, cash cattle trade about $10 higher, $10 to $15 higher in the north this week, really matching up with the futures market. Feeder index crashed hard for a little while to that low. And now has rallied back around that 340 area. Well, where did we close today? 339. So I think you're right. The fundamentals have got a hold of this market again. And it seems like, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but this feeder market seems like it's just not worried about the Mexican border anymore. Another case of screwworm close to the U.S. border. It seems like we're going to rally and not worry about that, which I'm going to throw caution out there to that. I think Trump is actually meeting with the Mexican president this afternoon. You just never know what kind of comments come out of that. Whenever the market pauses, it concerns me what he's going to say next.
Yeah, and there's just so much stuff like that it's hard to say. You never know. And I've said this a couple of times. I wonder if, at this point, this cattle market's taken so many hits, body blows, and here we are, getting back to it, that now as we move back upward, what's the next thing in front of us? Is it the Mexican border? What's going to be the next thing that hits this market?
Well, and that's what I mean, Jesse. I think I would have felt better if it would have continued to go a little bit lower. Let's get the Mexican border totally reopened, have the funds completely reset. I don't know what that would have took us down to. And then I would have felt better about the rally. So far, this rally, and this gets a little technical, but we've done a 50% retracement level. So halfway back up from this entire fall. That's for January feeders and for February fats. So technically, you're not in a bullish market yet. And I didn't think it could push through it today. And sure enough, it couldn't, because I don't think you want new buyers before a weekend. So we can go either way. Look at the January feeder chart. We're right close to one of those big gaps we left on the way down. Come next week, do we want to go fill that gap or not? And I want to say we sure can, as long as that negative news doesn't pop out there. But really, when you look at like the screwworm map that they just came out with this week, you could really open it up along the Arizona border, and you're hundreds of miles away from any of the cases. Now, I don't know how many cattle will go up and around through that area, but I guess I think the point you and I are trying to make, it's gonna open sometime, and this market has to be ready for that. As much as I want to get bulled up again about the cattle market, and I want to, pound the desk and say, the fundamentals are still bullish, I still like producers being hedged here. It's not fun if you're in margin calls, but this is still a great, great price. This is your $7 or $8 corn all over again. You kind of got a second chance at it here, I feel like. So I think we should still be hedged.
Dwayne, great stuff as always as we finish out today. Any final thoughts you'd mention or reiterate for folks?
Yeah, as the market does get quiet in holiday, and I think I say this every time, and I apologize, but I just believe in it. I think you go back to your spreadsheets, you make your marketing plans. I'm working on it myself, kind of got the corn outlook done. The bean outlook is a little tougher because I'm really just counting on the funds buying more beans, because I don't think we have to be up here either. So yeah, work on your marketing plans, get them in place, and then put those sale orders out there. That way you don't get emotional when the market does move. Because remember, if we get up to those sale targets, some bullish news had to be announced. Don't change your marketing plans and cancel if close orders. So yeah, work on your marketing plan, look at your farm, and then look to next year.
Dwayne, if folks want to reach out, talk with you there at Bolt Marketing, what's the best way?
Yeah, they can call us directly here, 605-448-2365, or they can check us out online at boltmarketingllc.com.
Dwayne Bussey, Bolt Marketing, always good to talk with you, my friend. Thanks for joining us on the show. Have a great one. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jesse.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.